Hello, adventurers. I am Lich Lord Bryan, and I'm going to be talking about the DMG today. Give you run through what's in the DMG, as well as give you my first impressions on the things in the DMG. Start off. Here's the DMG for 5th edition. It's releasing December 9th, which should be after this video is up, so you should be able to get it in any store at this point. A lot of people have commented on how good the art, how much they're impressed with the artwork in 5th edition, and rather than just expanding on it, I just want to make one comment about the art in 5th edition that I've liked, is that they've seemed to be trying to downplay some of the negative tropes that gaming has, particularly with overly sexualized outfits, which I think is a good thing. So, onward to what's in the DMG. Every 5th edition book, and it seems like every book nowadays, has a fun little disclaimer in it. The Monster Manual had a disclaimer about how the wizard staff hasn't been taken over by mind flayers, and you should get that idea out of your head, and the fact that it makes your brain, tough and harder to chew. So that was funny. This one says, disclaimer for tactics that Wizards does not officially endorse, which are guaranteed to maximize enjoyment for the Dungeon Master. First, always keep a straight face and say okay, no matter how ludicrous or doomed the player's plan of action is. Second, no matter what happens, pretend that you intended it all along for everything to unfold the way it did. Third, if you are not sure what to do, feign illness, end the session early, and plot your next move. And when all else fails, roll a bunch of dice behind your screen, study them for a moment with a look of deep concern mixed with regret, let loose a heavy sigh, and announce that Tiamat swoops in from the sky and attacks. So, funny, cute. I thought it was funny. You can have your different opinions. Going to the contents, gives you a... just going to get up a little bit closer. So, the introduction... introductory stuff for new DMs, as well, and then the chapter 1. The part 1 is mostly for world building. Part number 2 for crafting adventures, different things you can do, and also between adventure stuff as well as treasure. This will be where the magic items exist. Part 3 is running the game, which also includes a list of items that the DM would provide, and other things such as poisons and just new rules that you can explore. And then the last part is the DM workshop, which involves creating new monsters and things. So, let's go through it. Part 1, the introduction, how to use the book. Again, mostly for new DMs, master what the Dungeon Master is, what your role as the Dungeon Master is. So if you're a newer thing, these are always nice. And also a thing on knowing your players. What kind of players do you have? Do you players who act more, players who enjoy fighting, players who enjoy optimizing their characters, some people call it min-maxing, and just all that stuff. Optimization, which is, I'm more of an optimizer. I like to make my character really good at something. Then it goes into building your own world, core assumptions of the worlds, and these are always free for you to alter as well, because remember, as the book says, reminds the DMs it's your world. So just a bunch of helpful reminders, things for you to think about as you're crafting your world. Think about the gods. What kind of gods do you want in your world? There's, as well as different types of pantheons you can create. So, nice stuff. I'm probably going to skip ahead of this stuff, because this is stuff you would read as a DM for thinking about what you would do, what kind of things you would want your world to be as. So I'm just going to skip ahead a few things. Mapping your campaign, what the layout is, the atmosphere, what type governments, they all things you could think about. What kind of currencies, commerce, what kind of organizations and factions. Because this is Forgotten Realms, the core factions are the Harpers, the Orders of the Gauntlet, the Emerald Enclave, the Lord's Alliance, and Zentarum. So, and they have information on some of those as well. Think about whether or not how magic in your world works, creating the campaign, helpful tips on when you should throw your party some curveballs, what kind of other tips for different events, other tips for what kind of leaders your party is going to be encountering, cataclysms. Keep moving on. Back time. Playstyle. What kind of playstyle do you want? Is it more of a hack and slash, or are you talking about more immersive storytelling? Is the last part of that chapter. Well, actually, no, it isn't. And then there's the tiers of play, which are loose, but they do fall into some nice categories. Remembering that in the first 4 levels, you're more local heroes. When you go through level 5 to 10, your heroes are getting their first taste of power. Your wizards and your other spellcasters get their third level spells. 11 through 16, you're masters of the realm, and then at level 17, you're pretty much world beaters. You're the legends of that world. Different flavors of fantasy and how you might run them. Most D&D fantasy falls in the heroic fantasy. There's fighters, there's wizards, but magic is pretty common. There's the sword and sorcery, which is kind of like Conan the Barbarian. There's epic fantasy, and then there's mythic fantasy, which is more your Greek god fantasy, but it can encompass more things than that. Plus, this table also gives you tips for what kind of equipment your characters would start at, depending on what level they are. According to this, you won't be getting more than your starting equipment until you would start at level 5. So, some fun stuff there. What kind of fantasy? Again, more swashbuckling, dark fantasy. Remembering also for DMs that you also have different depending on what type of world you're in. Say you're in an Asian type campaign, giving the weapons different. They're more setting specific names will help the players a lot more. Nice section on the planes. Planar portals, the different types of structure that the planar travel has. The popular one at the Great Wheel is talked about, but there's also the World Axis, the World Tree, and a few other things. So just thinking how the planes work. And then there's a nice long description of all the planes. There's still the Ethereal Plane, there's still the Feywild, and the Shadowfell. Some things from 4E that were reasonably popular, they come back. The inner planes, so the elemental planes, plane of earth, plane of air, plane of fire, plane of water, and then more descriptions on the outer planes. These are all great, just in case you don't encounter the planes too much. Gives you an idea of what these environments are like. So, awesome stuff here. Probably gonna have to skip a little. And then we get creating adventures, which again is stuff I've discussed. What's nice in here is this is where you start getting into a lot of the stuff where if you're stuck on certain things, give you a lot of nice tables that you can, if it's like, say you are stuck on some like little details and you don't know what you're going to do, rolling on there, or if it's just a minor villain and you haven't really put too much thought into it, it gives you a little bit more to just to flesh out the environment and everything. Plus, people love rolling on tables. I love rolling on tables. Framing events, what's going on in your world, moral quandaries, complications, twists, some nice side quest table, XP by character levels. So, how you would build a encounter for your party. The adventuring day, how much adventuring they're going to be doing in any given day. Remembering that the more encounters you give them, the more resources that are going to be taken up from the characters that tie their resources into each day. So, do you want to drain your character resources? Do you want to provide assistance? Random encounters, always nice, just to keep people on their toes. Creating non-player characters. Reminder features. More advice on what the stats mean and that kind of stuff. Mannerisms, more details. That is fun to look at. Villains, what kind of scheme do you have? Again, you can always pick this stuff, and these are only guidelines, not the be-all, end-all. It's just to give you tips on what you're going to be doing. So, if you think I need to be holding up more to the camera, fine, okay. Villain class options. Now, this is where we start getting into some of the player content that's in the DMG, if the DM allows it, because you get the death domain in there, as well as the Oathbreakers, so you're more of the Oathbreaker Paladin. The Oathbreaker is kind of like your, what's the thing I'm thinking of? I was actually thinking of Blackguard. It's more of a Blackguard option. There have been people who have been asking for fluff reasons for why certain characters become an Oathbreaker. Some of them are pretty obvious for Paladin, like the, I forget what all the Paladin paths are right now. Some of them are a little more complicated, like the Paladin Oath of Vengeance. So, and plus it gives you options for atoning if you're a Paladin. So, if you take that option, it's always fun to introduce more player content. I was a little disappointed that the player content in the book wasn't more of it. There wasn't more player content in the book, but the player content they did include is fun. So, adventure environments. If you're in a dungeon creator, what's in there, features of it, mapping it out, other stuff, wilderness stuff. So managing travel times and that kind of thing. If you care to manage travel times, some DMs don't. I tend to be a little less strict on it. As well as different environmental concerns you might encounter: quicksand, strong winds, extreme heat, high altitude, slippery ice. So, the amount of food and water you need, a character might need. This was one of my favorite things that I looked at. It's the random settlement stuff, simply because of all the stuff that's in it. Things you remind you, like, when you're creating a settlement that you wouldn't normally think of, like, a lot of settlements are more cosmopolitan, but how are the races interacting? Are the humans and the elves interacting well? It gives you a nice little tip on it. What's the ruling status of it? Is the ruler respected? Is the ruler a mysterious, anonymous cabal? Gives you nice things to think about, as well as, the notable traits that your settlement might have. Whether or not it has canals in place of streets, like Venice. Or if it's destitute and run down, or if it's mostly wealthy. It's fun little stuff. What's the town known for? What kind of current calamities are there? What kind of buildings are there? And my favorite thing on this list is the tavern name generator, because some of the combinations just work out less than others. Like the Roaring Mountain, or the Black Pony. Well, yeah, I'm not gonna... There's a lot of interesting combinations to it, and just fun little random things that can give your campaign a little bit more, flavor to it. Mapping out the settlements, the sea, underwater, different travel vehicles you can get, particularly by sea. These are airborne and water vehicles. Then we get into traps. And I think we can all tell that is a trap. No rogue necessary. It gives you different traps that you can have, mechanical, how you trigger them, as well as some of the effects that those traps can do. Some of which are nasty, but it also gives you guidelines for creating your own personal traps, which are nice. And then what you can do between adventures. Does your adventure have an overarching story? You can use the downtime between it to plant more adventure seeds, to foreshadow, or you can keep it more of episodic. Plus, it gives guidelines for what kind of expenses your characters would have when they're, not adventuring, as well as more downtime activities. The Player's Handbook had a list of downtime activities your characters can do, and these give you a little bit more. Guidelines for what happens as you're carousing. Guidelines for building a stronghold, if you guys want to build your own castle. Gives you helps on guidelines on crafting magic items, running a business. So, a lot of stuff that your players might want to be doing other than just adventuring, as well as sowing rumors to facilitate the stuff they would want to do. And some guidelines for creating your own downtime activities that aren't listed in the book. Because as I said before, you're never limited based on what's in this book. Now we get into treasure, and this is the part where this is the part of the DMG, especially in 3.5, that the players love the most. Because this one has all the magic items! Yay! Magic item tables for giving out random stuff. Variant for potions, for combining potions. Little side effects your magic items can have. And then we get into the magic items themselves, which has your usual stuff, bags of holding. I'm not going to go through all this. It has all your magic items. Anything you pretty much want. +1 sword, +5 sword, some nice instruments for bards, some other fine stuff, the Mirror of Life trapping, some nice books, more weapons, more stuff. And I'm just going to flip through this because this is just all the magic items your characters will love you if you give them, and hate you when you deny them their goodies. This is their goodies. As well as sentient items, artifacts, and the Book of Exalted Deeds and Book of Vile Darkness make their return to D&D like they ever left, as well as other things like the Hand and Eye and Vecna. So, as well as other characters things, and this is part one I like this is the part I like as well, is the other rewards you can give them: supernatural gifts, blessings, and marks of prestige, parcels of land, titles, yada yada, and finally epic boons. Because if you somehow get into a campaign where your characters are above level 20, or at level 20, you might think there's nothing left for them to get. Well, there is. There's a whole list of epic boons they can get. More stuff that they can get to make their characters even better. And then part 3 gives you a lot of variant rules for things. How you'd handle dice, more tips on managing ability scores, more tips on when to give out advantage and disadvantage, which is the thing I really like in 5e is that system. More things about setting difficulties for the things players are trying to do. Inspiration, which is something I don't like in 5e, simply because I don't like a mechanical benefit to role-playing. It's one of the things I don't like about Savage Worlds as well. So, but some campaigns use it, so it's nice to have some more tips on when to give out inspiration. Exploration, good ideas for using maps, or if you don't like using maps. Resolving interactions, the social combat tip guidelines are in here, which I really like, because, not every problem needs to be solved by a sword. More map things. Oh, wait a minute, I think I skipped over. Yep. Optional rules for flanking, which are nice to have. These are things that I really liked. The rule for diagonals that was in 3.5. Optional rules for facing. I've never been a big fan of facing in it. Urban complications involving chases and that kind of thing. The diseases and poisons guidelines. Everyone loves using poisons. Madnesses, and just a bunch of other stuff. As well as making your own NPCs. Or actually, there's one thing before that is optional new ability scores you can have, such as Honor and Sanity, and when they might be appropriate to use. Adventure hooks. Guns. Optional rules for guns. This is a lot of optional rules. There's optional initiative rules, which I hate every single one of them, so I won't ever use. Especially the speed one, because it involves rolling for initiative every single round, which I will never accept. I do not like it. Optional rules for marking, which was a 4E concept that I liked, and I will be using that one if possible. Lingering injury, optional. Massive damage one. Morale. Just tons of optional rules, and now we're getting to the part of creating your own monsters, which is... I know every DM likes creating their own monsters. It's nice to be able to throw something so they're not just being able to memorize stats from the monster manual. Creating NPCs from scratch, guidelines for monsters with classes, creating your own magic items, creating your own spells, modifying classes, creating your own races, which they give you guidelines for the Eladrin and the Aasimar, which I was kind of surprised the Aasimar is there because the Deva is in here. I was surprised the Aasimar was in 5e because of the Deva. Optionals for spell points. This was a system that was used in 3.5 and mostly used with the Scion classes. And then your random dungeon generator. And the final thing that I really liked in the DMG, which was something that should have been in the monster manual, is your monster indexes. Because these needed to be in the monster manual. These really needed to be in the monster manual. There's no reason these had to wait till the DMG. So, that is everything for the DMG. Basically, that's pretty much me going through the entire book. Do I like the DMG? Yes. I wish there was a little more stuff in it that they... because they released some spoilers that suggested there'd be other stuff in it that I was kind of disappointed it wasn't in. But in general, I'm mostly satisfied with the DMG. So, yay, 5e.